Hey there, it's Andre at the Impulsive Thinker podcast. Thanks again for listening. This episode is brought to you by CADAC, the Center of ADHD Awareness Canada. I have Julia Waller from Strategic Coach, a really good friend of mine, and we're going to talk today about things that we're both passionate about. Julia is very passionate about people's unique ability. I'm very passionate about identifying people's strengths. I like to understand the individual, what makes them different, and what makes them tick, and how can I help them shine by using their strengths. And the other thing too is we both have young families. You have a daughter almost 10 at the time of recording. I have one that just turned 10 and 13 and a half. And I remember as a kid, first of all, hi, Julia. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, Andre. I know we're so into having this conversation. Yeah, thanks for having me. This is really fun stuff to talk about. And I think it's so useful for helping us be better parents and better humans.
Yeah, and especially with the entrepreneur that has those extra stresses and challenges of trying to keep a business going. And then, honestly, everyone does it. We forget or push aside our home life and our family because we know they're always going to be there. But I know for the listeners, and many of you are going to resonate to this, is our whole lives we've been told we do it the wrong way. That's not how you're supposed to do it. That's not how you solve a problem. That's not how you write a report. And my whole life I fought that. I knew I was different. I knew I did things differently. I saw things differently, and I basically fought to have the right to be unique and different, because I knew the way I did it worked well and I got results. I don't know if that's something you can relate to, Julia.
Yeah, I can relate in some, and maybe a little different way. But first of all, it's like you're having to fight just to be yourself, right? And to be acknowledged and appreciated and let to be yourself. And I'm huge on autonomy and allowing for people's uniqueness. So I think, I grew up in a family where my family was quite different, did things in quite a different way. So I think, in retrospect, now that I understand the kind of assessments that we use to understand people's strengths and talents and unique ability, I don't think they really understood or knew what to do with me, because I was much different than they were. And it's like, why, I remember we have stories of my mom when we were in the kitchen, and she would say, I'd ask her, how much water do I put in the whatever peas, which is such a silly thing. Probably, I don't remember what it was, but she's like, what's wrong with this kid? Like, why doesn't she just make it up and put the water in and throw it in the pan? Right. Whereas I'm looking for the recipe. I want the specific recipe for how to make that certain dish. Yeah. And otherwise I'm paralyzed. Right. And she's thinking, well, I know she's smart, but what's wrong with this kid? So I think I felt like out of sorts from a different way than maybe you did. And I didn't maybe have to fight the school system, because my profile fits in a little bit better with the school system.
But that's a good point. We still suffered or experienced the same problem or challenge, but in two different contexts, right? So no matter what, ADHD, neurodivergent, neurotypical, this is going to be relatable to everyone. And for me, I knew is when I was going to have kids, I wasn't going to force them to not work as best as they can. But how do we do that? Right. I think you alluded to it, that you work a certain way, and we just expect or guess that everyone works the same way. So we're trying to push ourselves. The way we do things is how everyone else should. Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's the key word. You just said the word should. So should is the red flag word, where we think, well, the way we do things is natural. Everybody else does the way we do it, right? So of course our kids should do it the same way. If we're really goal focused and we start one thing and finish it, our kids should do that too, because that's the right way to do it, right? Meanwhile, you and I both know that everybody's unique and does things in different ways. And I certainly, with my context, I don't want my kid growing up thinking that she has to be like me. I want to know, how does she do things? What's her natural way of operating in the world? And how do I help her be a better her? I don't want to convert her into being like me, because she's not. She's not like me, and she does things very differently. And I have lots of different examples. And so when you use tools like Unique Ability or Colby or Clifton Strengths or or things like that, then you can have a better language for understanding, oh, wait, my profile is different than Andre's, oh, that's an eye-opening right there. You can see, and it's good because, my sister and I are opposites. So when we're in a situation, I'm like, oh, thank goodness, I don't have to do that part of it because I know my sister's going to kick in. If we need some improvisation or whatever, then I'm going to use my sister. If we need some stability and some systems, we're going to use me, and she doesn't have to worry about those things. So same with our kids. Each kid can contribute to the family dynamic using their natural talents, and in different ways
to achieve the same result.
Exactly. So that's where, again, it's like, let's get clear on the results, same as you would with a team member in your entrepreneurial business. And, if you're going on a vacation or something, well, what results do you care about? And you get from the family, you can figure that out together. Everybody gets to chip in, and then you get there. And maybe I have a friend at work, her daughter plans all the parties. The mother doesn't like planning and organizing stuff, but the daughter loves it. So she gets to plan all the parties. My daughter plans parties here all the time. We had a cat party the other day. Complete with balloons and snacks. And
8 to 11 is a very cute age, no matter
it
what.
is a great age.
But that's the irony of it. Like, as an entrepreneur or even business, they'll spend a lot of money identifying strengths and abilities of their team members and work hard on that. But then we go home and we expect them to do it the way we do. And we kind of ignore that, why do we do that? And I know we both done this, like you yourself, like myself, I got Colby assessment done on both my kids, even my wife. We all know each other's Colby, and that was an eye opener on improved communication greatly. And even the Strengths Finder, they do that for, Clifton Strengths. They also have assessment for the kids. So instead of identifying out of top 5 strengths out of 34 themes, I think they brought it down to a dozen or so themes.
I think it's 10. Yeah, I forgot.
10, and then they picked 3. And that was an eye opener for my oldest. Like, her number 1 was competitive. We're like, oh, wow. Got it. That's why everything's a game. That's why everything's got to go. And we're like, oh no, settle down. You're being too competitive.
Well, now you know how to get her out of the door fast, right? You just go to race her. So it's great parenting. You're going to maximize your parenting if you can figure out how do I tune into my kids' natural motivations instead of trying to force something on them that's never going to work, right? Other kids aren't going to be motivated by that racing. And some people, competition is their lowest one and they don't care to compete.
And what I really found interesting and powerful, especially for 2 young girls in today's day and age, is I help them communicate. Like the school system we have right now, they've got one way of looking at it. That's it. No more, one way. That's it. Go away. So now it's like, instead of saying, hey, I can't do it that way, I help them communicate to the teacher, I work best this way. And if we do it this way or modify it, I can give you better results, or I can be less disruptive.
Yeah. Yeah. You teach them how to advocate for themselves, right? And you're giving them the language. I would use exactly those words. That's brilliant. To how to talk to their teacher, and it's going to be in their teacher's best interest, right? And again, we're all about results. Like if I want to get the results, here's what works best. I mean, there's that one story, I think it was a podcast with Kathy Colby, where the daughter was an 8 follow through, and they kept taking her out of the classroom, interrupting her classroom, right, to take her out to special classes, which was the worst thing to do for an initiating follow through who doesn't like to be interrupted. So once they figured that out, then she's become a huge advocate for Colby because it made such a huge difference in her life. Yeah. And then other kids are highly adaptable and, short counteract follow throughs. They're going to be great with that, just like you.
Yeah. And then the implementer, like my daughters are high implementers. So they're more tangible. When they problem solve, it's better to have tangible problems. Like my oldest was having problems with surface area and volume. And I tried about an hour. She's a fact finder, follow through. And I'm like, okay, I got that part. And then it hit me. I got these wooden cubes in the shop. So we went to the shop, and we did the physical model. This is your surface area, 1 row of cubes. Now, if you put this, stack them up 2, 3, now measure it. And then it was like within 5 minutes, the concept was understood. Right. And then my youngest, she needs to move because of her implementer. She needs to bounce and move. So she used to get in trouble all the time for being disruptive. And then the teacher finally called us and said, well, you took away her fidget toy.
Yeah, exactly. I just got my daughter to finally, like, somehow it got forgotten over the years, but she's now sitting on one of those sort of bouncy things on her chair, because she's, ever since she was born, she was always moving. They're never, and she's a 5 implementer, so in the middle range on the Kolbe, and but just always in motion, always in motion. And doesn't work most kids don't work sitting still. I was a teacher in my first career, and I have to tell you, I remember I would teach as few minutes as possible in front of the whole room. And then I was like, okay, everybody off you go. And some kids would go back and sprawl on the carpet. Other kids would sit at their desk, and we had a little outdoor space. I taught in Mexico, and they would go and run around. I said, if you ever need to go run around, go run around. I think just intuitively, I knew that it wasn't, kids aren't meant to be sitting like that in a desk very long.
Oh, and let's move it away from the school, because I can go on there for hours on that one. But let's look at it at home. Like, we're taught dinner time, you sit at your chair and blah, 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 and you're supposed to sit there. And, I was guilty of it. We're saying, no, sit, stay sitting. And she kept moving around, leaving, going around. And finally I said, you know what? We got those big Pilates bouncy balls. I said, bring that ball to the table. And she's
Brilliant.
now at dinner time, 100%. And it's her calm down. Okay, I need you to do something here. It's going to take some thought. Go do 10 bounces and then come over. Right.
That's great. Oh my
These
gosh.
little subtle things makes a big difference in their confidence and in their ability to build confidence to do stuff, if you understand how they work best. And like, I don't know, like I'm going through dialectical behavioral therapy right now, DBT. And a lot of that has to do with, just trying to understand there's a reason for an outburst. Any tantrum, any fighting, any argument, what is the real cause? That's just a symptom. That's just a surface, right?
Yeah, dig down.
You understand, like the issues with it, like my daughter was disruptive of the class. She argued. Well, once she got her fidget toy back, it was fine. She was able to focus. And that's like distraction. Like little stuff like that goes a long way. But the only way we can figure this out is by observing, doing some of these assessments, which some people say, oh, it's way too much money for kids or for whatever. But you know what? Like, I'll probably spend $1,000 in total for both kids, but I got a way better relationship. They know what to do at school. Like even my oldest, she's starting to work. She's grade 8, I think. Oh, wow, high school soon. And she already knows how she fits in a group team. She knows she's the researcher. So she's like, I do all the research when I work with these 3 people. They're good at this, they're good at that, and we just do it. But
she'll be the team arranger and the team builder too, because she'll know all that stuff, right? She'll identify.
The thing is, they're losing marks because they're not all equally doing the work. They're not all equally doing the research. But the stuff they come up with is phenomenal.
Yeah, the school system's not designed for unique ability teamwork, right? It's all like everyone should be equal. It's not customized like you and I like it to be. So I think, I mean, so many things you just said, but I think when you invest in, and I know the student aptitude quiz, the Kolbe is now very affordable. So you can do that grade 4 till
I'll have that in the show notes for the listeners.
Yeah, so that's very affordable. And Kathy Kolbe is very passionate about kids, and she worked with gifted kids years ago, and she's got lots of family too that she really cares about. But the more, and I lost my train of thought. See, I forget what I was going to say. I was going to say something else earlier about understanding your. Oh, I know what I was going to say. It's such a solid foundation when you build your life around unique ability and talents and strengths, right? So if your kid understands that from a young age, they're going to make better choices in terms of career, or like you're saying, even in terms of group work. Where do I fit in on the team? How do I contribute best? They're going to come with a high degree of self-awareness, especially compared to most people who don't even know about any of this stuff, right? So we're equipping our kids, especially for the world that's changing so much and so fast with technology. We're giving them the self-understanding to be able to know how to apply their talents. And I think that's invaluable.
Well, yeah. And then the way I was raised, not sorry to imply you with me here, but is if you didn't work on your weaknesses, you were not doing it right.
That's right.
And you were judged based on your weaknesses, not on your abilities to do things well. It's just,
Yeah.
that's stuff you do well. Don't bother, like, that's easy, whatever. But the stuff you're not good at, we got to build that up. And it's disheartening, and it's, it really drags on your confidence, on your ability, and you're concentrating to fix problems that you shouldn't, abilities that you shouldn't be.
Yeah. And confidence is everything, especially for entrepreneurs, but for everybody, if you're not feeling confident about yourself. So to be expected to be good, like we have this notion that everybody's good at everything. Well, that's not, who made that up? That's not true. And that whole idea of, Dan jokes, if you work on your weaknesses, you get really strong weaknesses, the Gallup has a whole concept of focusing on your strengths. And so you can work on your weaknesses and make them a little bit better, but you're going to get incremental improvement, right? But when you take something you're already good at and then you work on it, you're getting exponential impact from doing that. So it's a whole different thing. You're going to put the same time and effort in, but you're going to get way, way bigger results.
Yeah. And I found delegating to staff and even my kids within their strengths, or their strengths finders, or the Gallup strengths, Clifton's, whatever you call it now. I got to get used to that. You get better results back. They're more interested. Right.
Yeah. I just wanted to say another point about parenting, because I know sometimes we all get frustrated with our kids, I'm guilty of that as well, but my daughter, being a 5 implementer, will need to physically she'll need to physically demonstrate things to me. Let me show you, mommy, let me show you. And to me, I don't need that physical demonstration, but I always let her do it because I know she needs it. And I want her to be able to communicate in the way that works for her. So she'll show me, she'll act it out, she'll demonstrate, and she's got a big cardboard house she built for our cat in the living room right now. I helped her use the X-Acto knife, but apart from that, she got the screwdrivers out. She built a little cat food treat dispenser. I honestly wouldn't know how to build that she built. And so I let her rearrange the furniture because she's with her 5 quick start and her 5 implementer, she needs to change it.
Manipulate space.
Yeah, manipulate space. So once I put my couch and chair, I'm not moving it because I like things stable and I keep them the same. It doesn't even occur to me to change it. So I let her, and there she is, 9 years old, rearranging furniture. She did her bedroom. I said, no, it's too much work to move it around. I go upstairs. She's moved everything out of her dresser. She even took all the clothes out of the dresser. The amount of work that a kid will go through to do something that's their natural ability, to me, looks exhausting. To her, she had such fun. Yeah. It was awesome. And now I love her room. I think it's great, but I didn't even have to do it.
Right. And then actually my youngest, but the same age as your daughter, did exactly the same thing the last 2 weeks, rearranged. She's starting to get into interior designing and design layouts.
Yes, same
floors and houses. So, but I want the listeners to realize what Julia said here. She let her daughter do blah, blah, blah. She let her do, even though it's not the way she works, it's not the way she would do it. She still let her do it. And that, to me, unfortunately, that skill set or that observation for me is relatively recent. I wish it was more, a lot sooner, but if you let them do it their way and demonstrate it to you, to show you, my God, happy kids, kids to teach parents how they do it, and then they get validated for it, is powerful.
It's empowering, right? I want a kid who's empowered, and I want a kid who's aware. I want a kid, again, I'm helping her be like me in a sense, because I think that's my other theory about unique ability is we help everyone else be, think, feel, do like us. So she's in my context in a sense, like in my culture. Every business has a culture, but families have cultures too. In my culture, it's around appreciating uniqueness and giving space. And that's how I was raised as well. Thank goodness. I happened to be raised in a family that was very appreciative. Although again, I don't think I was really totally understood, because I was sort of the oddball in the family compared to everyone else. But I think my dad understood me maybe a little bit better because we had more similarities, but yeah, it's super powerful for the kids. It's gonna have them be just happier, more contributing people with better direction, better sense of where to go next,
And I think when you just said that, you were misunderstood too, and so was I. Now, I know on my side, they didn't take the time to try and understand.
Right. Yeah.
And I think what we're both doing, what I'm hearing you say is we're actually trying to understand how the oddball
Yeah.
is working and how they work best. So if like, I think what she said is very powerful is if you got a kid at home that you don't quite understand or get, and they're the odd one, try to understand the why and the reasoning they need to do it a certain way, or that they think differently from you. And when I started asking my youngest, because the way she thinks is completely, she's not as analytical as me. She sees in roses and art and all that stuff. So I'm actually having conversations. What do you see? How do you process this and talk out
Great
loud?
questions.
Right. And then she talks out loud and it's like, holy man, there's no way I could have ever figured that out that way. Or I see, oh, I didn't realize that that was blue on the furniture. I've had it for 15 years, never saw that blue.
So you're seeing through her eyes now, right?
Right,
See,
right.
she's helping you see the world through your eyes, and then you're helping her see through the world because you're actually analyzing as you're asking her those questions, and it comes from your curiosity.
Right.
And I think that's a great point you just made, is if we could just be curious about our kids instead of being judgmental and thinking they should. And again, if you hear yourself say that word, then that's your red flag. Oops, I'm not in unique ability zone here. I'm in, how many kids became a lawyer? My dad became a lawyer because his father was a lawyer. Did he really want to be a lawyer?
Yeah.
No, he wanted to be a bush pilot, So
Yeah.
we think that, our kids get put in these cookie cutters, and they're not. They're all unique and different.
Yeah. And this is the one thing I wanted to give my kids, the ability to go do what they want to do. Even though I may think they're not going to make money, it's not the way I would want to live, but at least have the opportunity. And if they don't want to do it at a certain point, to change, like you said, like based on my transformation over the last 5-6 years and the realizations I've come to, if I was able to work in my unique ability and I knew a lot about myself back then, I don't think I would have become an engineer.
Yeah.
Right.
It's fascinating, right?
The mold that from a young age, like it's nothing wrong. My parents, they believed what was right. They wanted me to have an education.
It's a
and
good
a
profession. It's
profession.
yep, stable. Yep.
I don't fault them at all. Now it's just like, now what do you do? Right. But I wanted and that's what I really love about you, Julia, is you really are about empowering people. And then the passion you have for empowering your daughter to be herself and being curious to understand her and that she works differently, and you letting her be her. Well, there's a lot of hers in there, but
It made sense though. It made sense. It made sense to me.
well,
That's how I would want it, right? I want to be me. And I care about that profoundly. So of course, then I'm going to want that for my love of my life, my daughter, right?
And to the listeners who's listening to this, if you're starting to feel guilty or upset in any way, don't be. If you are, then I think there's an inkling of a little bit of guilt and a realization. I think you can still make a change. Because I'll be honest, I've only been 3 years at this profoundly. For a while, I talked the talk, but I didn't walk it. I've been walking it for the last 3 years. So it's never too late to start. And what I'm starting to see with my 2 daughters right now is I started a few years ago, and they've already starting to forget before that, because of the attention you're giving to them now. That's what they're going to remember. And if we keep building up those positive experiences, and it outweighs the negatives from the past. And then with me, I'm open and honest to them about the challenges with ADHD, even the therapies I'm going through. I'm open and honest, and they're understanding that you're human and that you're trying to grow. They recognize that no matter what age.
Oh my gosh, everything you just said was just phenomenal. And I think, we want to have a deep connection with our kids, right? We want them to come to us when they're in trouble someday, when they're teenagers or older or whatever. We want to be, an important person in their lives, right? And they're going to have their independence and they're going to be off doing their own thing. But that connection, by honoring who they are and really trying to understand, even if you are opposite, right? Try to help me understand. How do you see that? How did you think about that? What do you need? What would you need to be successful? Asking all those questions and just coming from a being curious standpoint is going to build such a deep connection and relationship. and going to help them. I mean, most people say, what do you want your kids to be when they grow up? I want them to be happy. Well, if you want them to be happy, then help them be themselves. And the more they're themselves and you have a great deep connection with them, the more they're going to be able to go out in this world and make a positive difference.
Right.
Because they're going to be equipped. They're going to have some really great tools and resources and self-understanding, and they're going to make better choices, hopefully, and, go down. They're still going to mess up. Of course, some people have said to me, oh, you're going to take away all their mistakes that they're going to make. I'm like, oh, don't you worry about that. The world's going to take care of that. That's going to happen, because they're going to maybe stretch further even, right? So maybe they're going to even fail more, but they're going to fail in the right direction.
Right. And that's what I tell my girls. It's okay to fail. That's one of the greatest opportunities to learn.
Yeah. Dan just said it yesterday. You're on the failing team, or you're either failing or learning. You're either winning or learning. Right. And the only time you're losing is when you're not winning or learning.
Yeah.
So every failure is a learning.
And I think the greatest strategic byproduct of all this, if you get to understand your kids more and you have these kind of conversations, they actually learn that other people are different, and they will actually start to look for that. And I only got that realization over the last couple of weeks with my daughter. My oldest explained to us how when she works with this group of people, they all have their own tasks. She's a researcher, she knows it, but she's the one that's actively helping them stay. So
yep, they're going to be the guides, right? We're teaching the guides for future for other kids who don't know about this kind of stuff. They'll be the leaders.
For the listeners out there, I'm going to have the links to the student aptitude quiz and the strength finders and all that in the show notes. If you want more information, please reach out at podcast@theimpulsivethinker.com. We're willing to, I want people to know this and give it. We're not going to benefit. We're not going to make money from it. But if we can help you help your kids and help that relationship and build them up, I'm all for it. So
100%. Me too.
Julia, again, thank you very much. This was a fantastic topic, very important for everyone to know. We can have our companies, we can have our staff, but it's the kids that's actually going to continue our legacy and remember us. And I really like you a lot, because we're both at the same thing. How do we empower the kids? How do we get them to know? And like you said, let them be themselves.
Best gift you can give them, right? Best gift. Love them like crazy, and let them be themselves, and help them see who they are.
Exactly. And on that note, we're going to end it here. So thanks everyone for listening. This has to be shared with at least 5 other people. So please, can you share this with 5 other people and spread the word about how we can empower kids? It's simple. It's actually simple, but it takes work. It's one of those weird things, but please share this. I'd like to hear from you about this episode at questions@theimpulsivethinker.com. Thanks again, Julia. Always a pleasure.
Pleasure. Thanks, Andre.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll talk to you soon.